Jerry West, bro.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Do
Yeah,
you know
just
an old person that was more respected by young people than Jerry West? Like truly respected. Like, okay, he's not just an old dude. He is
yeah.
that fucking guy.
Yeah, I mean, you'd see him at All-Star game. He was one of those legends that the guys sought out. That the guy he would have like a line of people waiting to chop it up with him and catch up with him. Um, the one thing that I think about Jerry West is this is a dude who perhaps had more impact on today's NBA than any single figure. When you look at, he was, the architect of Showtime, the architect of Kobe and Shaq, the guy who told the Warriors, if y'all trade Klay Thompson for Kevin Love, I am quitting. Right? Like, and I remember so many of us thought that the Warriors were foolish for not making that trade. But I mean, this is a dude who just who knew basketball, who knew who saw the future, who was a visionary, and just lived a really complete basketball life. Like, was Mr. West Virginia, won states in high school, won a natty in college, won an Olympic gold medal, won an NBA championship, was the first NBA Finals MVP, and they started that shit because Boston used to used to whoop the Lakers' ass, and they're like, "Yo, Jerry West is so incredible. We've got to acknowledge the best player in these series, even though Boston keeps winning it, right?
We got to give him something."
Yeah, and he deserved that shit, but something that I always admired about Jerry West on a personal level is he was one of the first like sports legends, I feel like, to really talk candidly about like depression and the
Yeah.
trauma that he was working through his whole life from being abused as a child and all that. And I feel like, he kind of welcomed us in about 15 or so years ago with that information. And we're in a way better place now than we were 15 years ago. And you need guys like Jerry West starting those discussions. So, you know, starting those discussions 15 years ago. So guys like DeMar and Kevin Love can talk about it 15 years later, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, because I remember he was telling a story about how growing up, his father just abused him all the time. Like,
Yep.
and it made him withdrawn. It made him a quiet dude. And we all know Jerry West has that reputation of being a cantankerous guy. Not necessarily a really friendly guy. And he said that the abuse that he suffered as a child made him kind of retreat into himself that way. And he tells a story about how his dad would always abuse him, and he just took it. You know what I mean? But then one night, his dad abused his younger sister,
Right.
and he said he hopped in, beat the shit out of his dad, told him, if you hit either one of us again, I'm going to kill you. I've got my shotgun under my bed. Right. So it's he, if, I would just encourage if any of the listeners aren't familiar with his actual, progression in life, like I mentioned with the whole working through anxiety and depression and
Yeah.
and dealing with the trauma of being an abused child. That's something interesting to dive in with him because he was so candid and so vulnerable. And I remember something that stuck with me was, people asked him, did he try therapy? And he was like, therapy wouldn't work for me. I'm not a talker. And he was very open about how he's, medicated on like antidepressants and stuff to get to where he was at. So,
Right.
like we had a discussion, when Bill Walton passed about how he was someone who kind of made us appreciate being in the moment, appreciate all the little things in life. And, Jerry West is on the other end of the spectrum on some, it's okay to not be okay type shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And both those stances are valid because both those dudes were being their genuine selves with that. So that's something that I always will remember about Jerry West and be appreciative of him, just how open and vulnerable he was with those issues.
For sure. I mean, I think I want to say it was a Sports Illustrated feature where he talked about, when he was with the Lakers, it was like the game would start and he would just go get in the car.
Hmm.
And he would just tell a driver, just drive me around and just listen to the game on the radio because he physically could not watch the game from the arena because of
Yeah.
the anxiety. You know what I mean?
Right.
And again, you talk about a dude who just objectively, if you are any child anywhere on earth hoping to have a great life, Jerry West is about a best case scenario, right? You're not going to do much better than Jerry West. He's literally the fucking logo of the NBA.
Mhm.
And he was saying this wasn't even the playoffs. This was Tuesday, Lakers versus Nuggets in the, at that time, which was, and so that definitely, those moments for me, Tyler, where you talk about the mental health when I was younger were so significant for me because I think for those of us who struggled with depression or other mental health issues when we were younger, you had this false idea of like if I got on the other side of something, everything would be okay.
Mhm.
Like, oh, if I write a book that becomes a bestseller, then I would be, whatever.
Yeah.
And so when you heard from those people, oh no, man, it's fucked up over here too. So you got to find a way to try, to still enjoy life or to get here in a way that doesn't destroy you mentally. Those were always for sure. And that's why I remember that story, because I remember reading that being like,
Mhm.
well, I'm not going to do better than Jerry West just objectively. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I can't hope that like some level of achievement would just fix everything or whatever. So yeah, it's crazy. He also had, I think, maybe one of the best quotes of all time, talking about when it was real popular for everyone to talk about, having that dog in him a couple years ago.
Mhm.
And he was sitting up on stage doing an interview, and you could and I love this about an old man. He couldn't wait to get that line off. He said, there's a lot of talk about, who's got that dog in him. Well, I was a wolf. I ate dogs.
Hey, top-notch old white guy coworker. Cliche right there. He nailed that shit. He knocked that one out the park, man. Shouts to Jerry. And to his credit, he was a bad motherfucker, dog. Like, he's one of the handful of guys from that era who would thrive in today's NBA, for sure.
I mean, you look at what he did scoring, and any of the guys who scored at a high level with before the 3-point line and who were doing it consistently in the playoffs and stuff, you just have to look at as absolute different animals for sure. Because it was, and they were fucking cage fighting too in the mid range.
We're this close to crowning an NBA champ, and with the action heating up on the court is even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered every step of the way, with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Don't miss out as the NBA postseason winds down.
It's super easy to get started with DraftKings if you're a first-timer. Try betting on something like a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It's that simple. The Mavericks are plus 170 underdogs heading into the finals, which is pretty interesting, especially when they have the best player in the series. And if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Jenkins. That's code Jenkins for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.